Hey guys, it's Kiowa here, and I just wanted to make this new channel. I plan on using this to roast people that I feel deserve it, and this is the first thing that I've found is an article on Huffington Post by a reporter named Andy Campbell. Um, I don't really know much about him, so it's not like I can really say anything about him. But the article is called Black Voices: How to Reduce Your Chances of Being Shot by Police in 2 Easy Steps. And I just immediately saw this and I was like, wow, I need to make a video on this. And that's when I decided that I knew I wanted to make this channel, but I decided that now is the time to make it, just mainly because of all of what's going on right now in America. And I decided that now would be a good time to start this channel. And what better way to start it off with this article? And I plan on doing videos in the future, but right now I'm just going to do this article. Alright, so let's get started. The very first line is, if you ever find yourself in the United States of America, you might end up getting shot by a police officer. And I just saw this and I didn't have words. I was like, I can't even understand how you would come up with something like that, because most Americans have never had a run-in with police to where they might be shot. I can pull up the statistic right now of how many people were killed by police in 2015. So this right here is a representation of the amount of people killed by police in 2015. As you can see, this is from the website thinkprogress.org, and it shows that U.S. police have killed 1,186 people in 2015. So by just doing a little bit of math, you can easily see that his claim is bogus. It's saying that you might get shot. There was 1,186 people that were shot in America by police out of the 318.9 million people that live in America. Now, if you divide 1,186 divided by 318.9 million, you get 0.0000371903. And then you multiply that by 10 to get a percentage. That's 0.0000371903% chance of you being shot by police. He then goes on to say that police shootings aren't correlated with the city's violent crime rate, which, just take a look at this graph. What he says there is funny, because if you look at Florida, Florida is the third biggest when it comes to police shootings of civilians. It has 79 people killed. But then, so if he says that it's not in correlation with the city's crime rate, just look at this headline by, you guessed it, Huffington Post, saying that 11 of the nation's 100 most dangerous cities are in Florida. It then goes on to say in the article, I'll link that in the description, that the next one is California with 10. But then California has 213 police shootings. But it's the second biggest crime. It's got 10 cities in it with the biggest crime rate. So just by that, what does he mean by it doesn't have any correlation? Because it obviously does have a correlation, that if there's more crime in the city, there's going to be more police shootings. But then you also have, if you look at Michigan, the state of Michigan only had 20 people to be killed by police. The city of Detroit is also in Michigan, and it's rated at number 1 dangerous cities in America, with a population over 200,000. Also, according to this, it shows that Detroit, Michigan has 1,988.63 violent crimes per capita, which is the most out of any city in America. This also shows that before 2014, police response times were at 58 minutes for when you call 911 for police to show up at the scene. It would take almost an hour, whereas the national average was 11 minutes. But in this article found on Women's Self-Defense Institute, it says, according to American Police Beat, the average response time for an emergency call is 10 minutes. Atlanta has the worst response time with 11 to 12 minutes, and Nashville comes in at a lightning speed of 9 minutes. So if it would take police in Detroit to respond, it would take them an hour to respond to the call. That's 6 times longer than the national average of 10 minutes, which is just abysmal. And it shows that there's so much crime that the cops don't even want to touch the city. Next, he just says that he just wants to show why he's making this article. It's after watching the Alton Sterling and Philandro Castile murders by police. If you guys don't know what happened, I believe Alton Sterling was the CD guy. He was selling CDs outside of a gas station, I believe, and he was tackled by police after someone called the cops on him, and they held him to the ground and shot him. If you look up the video, I don't want to post it on here because it may be very sensitive for some viewers, but I believe it's on YouTube. If not, you can just look it up on the internet and it should pop up. And then Philandro Castile, it was live streamed on Facebook. A man, a woman, and their kid were driving in a car, and the man was driving, and they were pulled over for a busted tail light, and the cop asked for license and registration, and Philandro said that he had a weapon on him, but that he was licensed to carry, and then he was going into his pockets. He was telling the officer this while he was going into his pockets, and the cop freaked out. He was like, "Put your hands up," and then he shot him 4 times, thinking that he was grabbing a gun, and then he later died in the hospital. Philandro did. Both of these shootings were tragic, and I side indefinitely with the victims, both cases. I do not believe that any of the cops should have shot either of these 2 men. It was wrong on all of the cops, and I do believe that they should be tried. But to make this about for Black Lives Matter, they go out and then they start protesting and saying that all cops are evil, even though you get these 2 cops, these 2 crooked cops who shoot people. It's only stuff like this. It only happens when a white cop kills a black person, a black civilian. It never happens when a white cop kills a white person, or a black cop kills a black person, or a black cop kills a white person. It's only when a white cop kills a black person, and it's astonishing to me. Now, to actually start this article off, Andy Campbell says that the best way to reduce the risk of getting shot by police is, you guessed it, don't be black. Now, when I originally saw this article, I thought it was going to be like, don't provoke the police, don't do something stupid, don't commit a crime. But no, it's just don't be black. So the first paragraph says that the Washington Post calculated that police shot and killed 990 people in the United States in 2015, which I already disproved. It's actually more than that. It's 1,186, or about 1 person every 8 or 9 hours. So you'd be thinking, that's a lot of people. That is a lot of people. But how many of those people were provoking the police? How many people had a weapon? How many people brandished a weapon? How many people shot at the police? It's not just random people that are shot. This includes everybody shot by police. Now, if you look at the original graph that I showed you, where it shows that 1,186 people were killed by police in 2015, only 310-ish of them were African American. And then this says that police shot and killed 990 people, and that 161 African Americans were lynched in 1892. That is correct. 161 African Americans were lynched in 1892. But of the 990, it's actually 1,186. There are 330 black people that were killed by police. And then if you look at his statistic about lynching, it's a common misconception that lynching was only done to black people. It was done to white people too. About 27% of lynches were white people being lynched for helping out blacks, or speaking against lynching. You could be hung and killed for that. So it's not just black people. He's just throwing out numbers and throwing out big numbers to make you be like, oh wow, this is really bad. But of course it's bad. Lynching is a terrible thing. That's why I'm not showing any pictures of it, because it's a terrible sight to look at. If you are brave enough to, you can look it up on your own, but I'm not going to show any pictures of it. It's just, it's a terrible thing. But he's he's just saying lies and stuff and making it look like all 990 people killed in the United States were African American, because it says don't be black, but then it calculated that 990 people were killed in the United States. They weren't half of those numbers were white people. Okay? Of the 1,186 people, half of them, just over 500 people, were white. He then makes it look like white cops are racist by saying that of the people killed last year, 40% were black, even though black men only make up 6% of the population. They only account for 27% of the shootings. And then in the next paragraph, he says that majority of the case, the person never attacked someone. Who is he talking about here? Is he talking about the Michael Brown case? Because this was like what really sparked movements, especially it really sparked Black Lives Matter. The guy went to a store and robbed it. He shoved the guy that works there out of the way and went out the door, and the cops were called on him. And he went up to the police officer and tried to fight for his gun. And then he was shoved off of him. And then he kept walking towards the officer. And then he was shot multiple times. I don't understand why you would say that that's how at all is that not showing any sign of threatening behavior. And then, but a hugely disproportionate number, 3 in 5 of those after exhibiting less threatening behavior, were black or Hispanic. And I don't understand this claim, because it says that 3/5 were a combination of black and Hispanic. They were either black or Hispanic. And now if you do the math, that's 3/10 were black, 3/10 were Hispanic, and 4/10 were white. How is that hugely disproportionate? There are more white people being killed by police. So the next paragraph suggests exactly what liberals say if Donald Trump became president, which is, number 2, consider moving to another country. He then says more people died at the hands of cops in America in the last 24 days of last year than in the last 24 years in England and Wales. I believe that that's probably, I don't know if that's 100% true, but I know that in November of last year, American police killed 78 people, but in like the past 95 years, it's only been 51 in the UK. Next, he says, whether it's due to our affinity for guns, our fear that everyone around us has them, or a lack of training among police officers, many Americans aren't surprised anymore to see gun violence between officers and civilians. I don't actually really understand this, because he says whether it's due to our affinity for guns. Me liking guns wouldn't have anything to do with a cop shooting a person. That me liking guns wouldn't do anything. You know, me liking something isn't going to make somebody else do something like that. He says, our fear that everyone around us has them. What do you have to be afraid about that people around you have guns? Of course people have guns. This is America. This isn't like China. We have guns in our houses. Why would you be scared of them? People aren't going around brandishing them, and they're not shooting up places, and your neighbors aren't going around killing people. If your neighbor is licensed to own a gun and to carry a gun, why would you be scared? They've gone through the necessary classes. They know what they're doing. The government trusts them to give them a license and give them a gun. Then he goes on to talk about the lack of training of officers, and the lack of training of officers. American officers are highly, highly trained. But the reason that they get so much controversy is because they're taught it's better them than me. You know, it's better to keep me and my people safe than to keep someone who is either breaking the law or is probably breaking the law. It's better to keep me safe than him. So far in the U.S., there have been 58 killings of U.S. police, and there's been about 500 something where police kill civilians. So the police are taught that it's better to him to die than me or the people that I'm protecting to die. And then if you look at the UK, if you look at like the statistics, there's more cops dying in the UK than there are actual suspects, actual criminals. He then says that many Americans aren't surprised anymore to see gun violence between officers and civilians. And like, I'm really surprised every single time it happens. Like, I was surprised with both of the shootings that just happened, and with the Dallas shooting that just happened last night. It's heart destroying to hear about this stuff, and then people blame the cops. Then he says, in many other democratic developed nations, violent confrontations between citizens and law enforcement officers pan out a little differently. Well, maybe because here in America, we have such an anti-cop message just being spewed around by social media and just the media in general. They're spouting, just like this entire article is spouting anti-cop propaganda. And if you want to fix it, don't be a part of the problem, be a part of the solution. You doing this is not going to help. This is not going to help less cops shooting less people. This is not going to help less people dying by saying that all cops are bad. No, all cops are not bad. The few that decide that they're going to shoot when they don't need to are what's bad. Then he gives a story about what happened in London a little bit after last year's Paris attacks. You can pause it and read it. Again, it's the mindset that the cops are taught. It's me or them. And it's sure not going to be me. I mean, personally, if I was faced with someone that's trying to take my life, why would I want them to do that? You know, you're going to do whatever you can to make sure that they don't hurt you, or they don't try to hurt anybody else ever again. Then he says, police, meanwhile, are rarely indicted over fatal shootings, though charges have been filed more often over the past few years as civilians use smartphones to record altercations. Of the few officers actually charged over a shooting in the last decade, 1/3 were convicted. Now, the reason that only 1/3 of the officers that get charged are convicted is because we find out evidence, especially if you look at like the Michael Brown shooting. People said that he had his hands up and was saying don't shoot, but he in reality didn't. His hands were down and he was walking towards the cop, and that's the reason why he was shot. Now, why don't we just look at the racial tolerance that the left has with their Black Lives Matter march in New York City. Now, this is all just astonishing, and I can't believe, I can't understand any of this whatsoever. It hurts me just to watch videos like that and to see what people will do. Just chant for dead cops. And then in that same day, that's when the Dallas shooting took place, and 5 police officers were killed. 11 total were shot, 6 injured, 5 killed, and 2 civilians. And it's just, Black Lives Matter is destroying the world. I can tell you right now. I'll post links in the description for 2 videos, actually 3 videos, 2 Paul Joseph Watson videos and 1 Louder with Crowder video. I watched them the other day, and they're really good, and they make about the same point that I do. And yeah, so that's it for the rest of this video. All the links for everything that I said is going to be in the description. And thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment, rate, and subscribe. And watch the rest of my videos when I start pumping out more. Peace.